everybody. And we are, say it with me, back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Potty Plant Entertainment. I got a good one for y'all today because today we are going to be talking about one of the magnum opuses of the sci-fi genre, Star Trek: The Next Generation. Guys, I am super excited to be making this video today. This is something I've been wanting to talk about for a little while, and we're here. We're talking about it. The video is happening. Yes, a review. Yay. These are kind of a dime a dozen nowadays on Potty Plant Entertainment, but we're here. We're doing it, and it feels awesome. By the way, in case you think, oh, Chris, you only uploaded like 7 times this year, check out the Shorts tab because I react to every new movie that I see. So check that out. Just in case you think that like I've been like disappearing for long periods of time. I haven't. Just got to check the Shorts tab. Anyways, so as I said, Star Trek: The Next Generation is one of the magnum opuses of the sci-fi genre. This is commonly considered to be one of the best TV shows of all time and one of the best things that ever happened to sci-fi, and I have to agree. When it came to the original series, it was a fantastic show. It came out in the 60s, so you have to forgive it. It's kind of corny, but it is a great show, and you go there for the characters, right? Star Trek: Next Generation obviously has some episodes that are better than others, but it's the same thing. You really go there for the characters. And Star Trek revolutionized sci-fi, right? I mean, if it weren't for Star Trek, we would have never gotten Star Wars. And if it weren't for Star Wars, we would have never gotten the Star Trek movies, which means we would have never gotten this. So it's kind of interesting how like Star Trek and Star Wars have helped each other a lot. Because I know people like to compare them a lot, but when you think about it, really, they helped each other along the way. So we owe a lot to both of them. Now, I did do a review for Star Trek: The Original Series on my channel. You can go check that out. I did that about a year ago. I was wearing the same shirt, which, by the way, I don't have a Next Generation uniform shirt. I only have Original Series, so I just figured I'd wear this. But I'll say this. I am a newer fan to the Star Trek fandom, right? Let's see, this was probably almost 2 years ago. I was sitting around, I was thinking, you know what? I like Star Wars, but I haven't really given Star Trek a fair chance, right? I had seen a few episodes of the original series when I was a kid, thought it was boring, didn't think there was enough action, it was too corny because of just how old it was, so I wasn't into it. And then I bought this, Star Trek: The Original Series, and this is remastered, so like all the special effects were like cleaned up and stuff. So it looks better on there than it did in the 1960s. But I watched it, fell in love, thought it was great, and I was like, okay, I want to watch everything Star Trek. And you know, if you can believe it, since then, I haven't really been watching a whole lot of movies because pretty much everything I watch now is Star Trek. Because I discovered like this grandiose fandom, one of the biggest fandoms of all time, and I just stopped watching movies as much, if you can believe it. Like, I know this is a movie channel, but like I bought like all these movies that I've shown you on like DVD updates. A lot of them I haven't watched. And last night I was watching some of my old videos and I was showing off movies I had bought and I was like, man, I still haven't watched that. And it's just because I discovered Star Trek. Now, as I said before a year ago, this is not going to become a Star Trek channel. I'm always going to be talking about movies here. And don't get me wrong, my passion for filmmaking has not faded. It's just that I discovered this new thing and I got super into it, or this new thing to me, and I got super into it. And so movies kind of took a back seat to it, at least for now. Because I'm still watching Star Trek Voyager, and I'm still watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And for Black Friday, which, by the way, yeah, I'm not doing a Black Friday vlog this year because Black Friday's dead. So I bought Star Trek Enterprise on Blu-ray from Amazon because it was on sale. So I haven't watched any of that yet. And I like Strange New Worlds. Not nearly as into it as the stuff from the 20th century that we got out of Star Trek, but I like it. Yeah, so just haven't been watching movies as much because I discovered Star Trek and fell head over heels for it. So yeah, I'm a newer fan to the Star Trek fandom, but I'm glad to be here. And I have mentioned this in a video before, but I did meet William Shatner this year, which is pretty cool. He's not in Next Generation, but I have met him. It was pretty cool to meet one of the most famous people of all time. So, oh, and this was given to me as a gift about a year ago. I didn't turn it on. This one? Yeah. The USS Enterprise D.
Lock on photon torpedoes. Fire. Engage. Red alert. Raise the shields. Lock on.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. I also have one of the original Enterprise from the original series, but I just figured I'd show you all this because it's one of the coolest things I own. So, needless to say, I love this show, right? It's fantastic. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's fantastic. So, Star Trek The Next Generation ran from 1987 to 1994, and it stars Patrick Stewart, Brent Spiner, Jonathan Frakes, LeVar Burton, Michael Dorn, Marina Sirtis, Gates McFadden, and Will Wheaton, and it was created by the late, great Gene Roddenberry. And this show takes place somewhere between like 70 and 100 years after the original series. I've seen some things that say like 100 years, but in the pilot episode, you know, Dr. McCoy is there, like, and I think they say it was something like 70 years later. So I'm not really sure, but it's a long time later, right? We've taken a big jump into the future here. And it's about the new adventures of the new Enterprise and the new crew. Because as we all know, the original Enterprise was destroyed in Star Trek 3. So it's whole new adventure, whole new time for Starfleet, all new characters, brand new adventure, right? And they go out to explore the final frontier and boldly go where no one has gone before. That's the plot of the show, right? It was created after the success of Star Trek 4, which was a mega hit back in the 80s. And Gene Roddenberry created the show, and we still talk about it all these years later. And it's funny because when this show was announced, nerds, right? Nerds were protesting this show because they didn't believe in having Star Trek without Captain Kirk. Boy, am I glad that nobody listened to them, because there would be a lot less Star Trek if they did. It was just, it's so stupid looking back on it. It's like, you know, people got mad that Hugh Jackman got casted as Wolverine, and then now you can't picture anyone else doing it. It's just dumb. And the show was almost a failure. The first 2 seasons of this show went through a lot of creative differences. Gene Roddenberry butting heads with the other creative minds involved in the show. Gates McFadden left the show after season 1 and then came back for season 3. Which is where the show really kicked off. But this show really expanded on Star Trek in the best way possible. And it's just a good thing it all worked out. So, characters and their relationship. This show has phenomenal characters. I mean, you really do go to Star Trek for its characters. Like, Star Trek always has such great characters. Because, of course, you got Captain Picard, Data, you've got Commander Riker, Geordi LaForge, Worf, Counselor Troy, Dr. Crusher, and Wesley Crusher, right? And Wesley Crusher wasn't really the main ensemble for a lot of the show, but he was there for quite a bit of the show, right? And these characters are just great. I mean, okay, fine. A lot of people don't like Wesley. I didn't mind him, whatever. The point is, they're great characters, right? And they all have serious depth. And they're all very interesting characters, very unique characters. It's one of the things I always loved about, like, The Walking Dead. The characters were always so unique and different and just felt creative, right? Like, Data's an android, and he doesn't have emotions. He longs to be human. And he's very interesting like that. You've got Worf, who is the first and only Klingon to ever join Starfleet. That's super interesting. Patrick Stewart, a bald guy in the future, because I guess they haven't found a cure for baldness yet, or maybe he just chooses to be bald. I don't know. But he's a super interesting guy, very poetic type man, right? You got Riker, who is a lot like Captain Kirk, and I think he was supposed to be the backup plan in case people didn't like Patrick Stewart. I don't know if that was ever confirmed, but I have heard that rumor. Counselor Troy, who's the love interest for Captain Riker. And you've got Gates McFadden, who plays Dr. Crusher, who is the love interest for Patrick Stewart. And she's the mother of Wesley Crusher. So she's a doctor. And you got the ship counselor, which was something that you didn't have in Star Trek before until now. But you got a ship therapist now, right? And all their relationships. I mean, these actors really play off each other super well. They all have insane chemistry. They work together so well. And you buy into their camaraderie, and it makes you want to be a part of it. You want to be a part of that family, right? Because over time, as the show goes on, they grow and they really become a family. All the characters grow. They all have good character arcs, and they grow closer together and just become family. And you want to be a part of that family. You want to get on the bridge of the USS Enterprise D, and you want to go on these adventures with them, and you want to be close to them. You want to be a part of this. It's excellent. The characters were written so well, and they were casted so well. They're just perfect characters. They all are smart, and they work together to solve issues. They have their moments of button heads, but at the end of the day, they love each other, and they all come together to accomplish a common goal. And it sets a good example for what humanity can strive to be, because that's what Star Trek always is, right? It's been Gene Roddenberry's vision was always, let's shoot for the stars and become the best that humanity can possibly be. He was a World War II vet, and then he was a cop, but he always dreamed of being a writer, and he came up with Star Trek. And Star Trek has always been about equality and being nice to each other. And it's okay to disagree. We don't have to beat each other up and start riots. We don't, guys. We don't. We don't have to label those who dare to step out of line and think differently from us as fascist or racist. We don't have to be that way. We can all agree to disagree and work toward a common goal. And this shows us that we can do that. We just got to pull our heads out of our butts, right? I want to talk about a couple of the individual characters. I want to talk about Worf for a second. So Worf is such a great character because, like I said, he is the only Klingon to ever join Starfleet. He was raised by humans after Cardassians attacked his planet. And throughout the show, he gets humorous moments of clashing with human culture. He's very proud to be Klingon. He's very proud of his Klingon heritage. But he doesn't hang out with other Klingons. He wasn't raised by other Klingons. He wasn't really immersed in Klingon culture like that. So half of him, his Klingon side and then his Starfleet side, they really clash together. And it makes for really great character moments, and a lot of them humorous. He feels he doesn't really fit in anywhere. He doesn't feel like he fits in with Starfleet and humans and other cultures, and he doesn't really feel like he fits in with the Klingons either. So he's a complex guy, right? And eventually in the show, they introduce, oh, by the way, we're going to get into spoilers here, just so you're aware. They introduce that he has a son. He had a long-lost son, and he's just a kid, but he tries to raise him to be a fierce Klingon warrior, and he doesn't want that. The kid doesn't want that, and so he decides, hey, like, I need to let him follow his own path, just like I had to follow my own path, right? Great character arc. And then you got Data. Like I said, Data is an android who doesn't feel human emotions, but he longs to be human, and which also creates for great character moments and humorous moments because he doesn't have any emotions, so it can be really funny at times. And his technology is super advanced, We never seen anything like them. We don't know how to replicate them, right? And there's even an episode where, and it's probably one of the most famous episodes of the show, and that leads me into my next point, which is the show has a lot of moral dilemmas and questions that it brings up. There's an episode where Data is on trial because they're trying to decide whether or not he should be considered property or if he should be considered an individual. And it makes you think, you know, we got AI rising nowadays for the past couple of years. Like, it's becoming more and more advanced, and it makes you think, should an android have rights, or is it just a thing? It raises these questions and makes you think about things like that. It's a smart show. It's not just pew, pew, pew and explosions. It's smart, and it makes you think, and it asks you questions, right? That's great writing. And of course, you always got the thing with the Prime Directive, which is, let's not interfere with other cultures. Let them develop naturally. And there's times where it's like, hey, like, this big disaster is going to kill all these people on this planet. Should we interfere? And it makes you think, like, well, should we let what's going to happen? Or should we help? Things like that. By the way, I'm a little sick, so if I seem like it, I apologize. It's just smart writing. The writing in the show is just super, super smart. Next page. All right. The villains. This show has some excellent villains. The Borg. Lore, Data's brother, right? Moriarty, who was like Sherlock Holmes's arch enemy. Q. Q is such a great character. He's there at the beginning and he's there at the end, and we're going to talk about that later. The Borg are awesome. Super scary, zombie-like dudes. They're just great. And then, of course, we got the Next Generation movies after this, which really they only nailed 1 out of 3, which was First Contact. And First Contact is my favorite Star Trek movie. And the Borg are super awesome in that movie, super creepy. The Borg are excellent. They are just an excellent, excellent villain. Robot, zombie guys, they're just cool, right? Also, the costume redesigns in this show were really good. Now, they got better once they added the collars, because at first they looked a little funny, but they look more modern, right? Like, you can buy. People make fun of the original series and say, like, it looks like they're wearing pajamas, but you can buy into their uniforms a lot more in this. The new Enterprise is cool. What a cool design, right? It just looks great, and it's iconic now. It's one of the most iconic spaceships of all time, and it just looks really cool. Also, the science in the show. There's obviously, with Star Trek, they talk about science a lot, right? Lots of Sheldon Coopers up in here, right? And for the most part, the science that they talk about is real. The writers would actively work with scientists, like leading scientists of the 1980s and 90s, to talk about new science and how they can incorporate it into these scripts. The makeup in this show, fantastic. A lot better than the original series. There's new alien species that are introduced to us, such as the Ferengi, which are really funny. We get a lot of great stuff with the Ferengi in this show. And of course, we got a lot of great stuff with the Ferengi in Deep Space Nine as well. Even more, I think, in Deep Space Nine. And of course, you've got the transporting, and which is just a staple of Star Trek, right? You can beam in and beam out anywhere. They put a new animation for it in this show, and it never feels like a crutch. One of the funny things about Star Trek is that, like, the transporters never work unless the script wants them to, right? And I do appreciate that, because I mean, let's be honest. If that was a real thing, you'd be using it constantly to get in and out of sticky situations, right? Which the characters do. Who wouldn't? We would do that in real life, so they do it in Star Trek. But it never feels like a crutch. Like when they need it to not work, it doesn't work to give us more tension and better stories. And I appreciate that. Of course, this show opened the door for Deep Space Nine and Voyager, which I think I said this already, but I'm currently watching through those shows. I haven't finished them yet, but I'm very much enjoying them. And then the series comes full circle in the finale. There's so many great episodes that I could talk about. I mean, it would be great if I could talk a little bit about each episode of this show, but of course, the most famous one is when Picard becomes a Borg and then unbecomes a Borg, which is brought up a lot of times throughout the show and then brought up in the movies as well. And it was one of the major elements for Star Trek First Contact, best Star Trek movie ever. But it all really comes full circle in the finale. So let's talk about the series intro. So it feels like two stories mashed together. And I think that's because that was of a studio mandate. It really should have been two different episodes, but they were kind of forced together. I think the writers did the best they could at making these two plots work. But one of the plots was Q is putting humanity on trial for its past sins. And Picard has got to convince him that humanity is not guilty, right? We've evolved. He says we've evolved past the need for material possessions, and we're not racist. We're not sexist anymore. Even Riker says at one point, he goes, we no longer enslave our animals for our food. Humanity's come a long way, and he's got to convince Q of this. Like, he's chosen Jean-Luc Picard to be the one to represent all of humanity, or everyone's going to die. So, and then in the finale, Q shows Picard his life in different various stages. And it really, and like things that could happen, it really shows that humanity and these characters always have room to grow, right? We can never stop improving. And even though they achieved a future where there's no crime on Earth, there's no crime. There's no need for police officers. We don't need them because there's no crime, which is great. I'm a police officer. How great would it be if I had to find another job, right? We would all love that if there was no crime, no sexism, no racism, no bigotry, right? People don't even work for money. There's no money in the future. They just have collectively agreed, let's work for the betterment of mankind. So they do. They work for free. Like, how cool is that? So, but even though we've achieved that, there's always room to grow. There's always things that we could do better. There's always lessons to be learned. And the whole series really comes full circle from the pilot to the finale. And it's just great. It's great. Q was a great character. He was a great teacher for Picard. As much as he annoys Picard as a reoccurring character in the series, he teaches him a lot. He learns a lot from him, and vice versa. And even though Star Trek Picard seasons 1 and 2 were absolutely atrocious, that moment at the end of season 2 when Picard hugs Q, I felt like was really great. It helped round out something that was already rounded out, and I appreciated that. But I will say, Star Trek Picard season 3 is one of the best things that ever happened to Star Trek. And it, again, helped round out something that was already rounded out pretty well. Love Star Trek Picard Season 3. So let's get into my cons. Don't have much, just a couple things. So Seasons 1 and 2 aren't as good as the rest of the show. So I know that Gene Roddenberry had certain things he wanted to do creatively. He didn't want the characters to have... He didn't want them to butt heads at all, right? And the other writers really disagreed, and it kind of became a problem behind the scenes. Gene Roddenberry was wrong. He didn't allow for character moments, right? It was just all about the plot. And you go to Star Trek for its characters, like I said. And so that was not good, but he got removed after season 2, and season 3 and on, it was just phenomenal. Seasons 1 and 2 aren't bad. There's still some good episodes, but when I was watching it, I was like, this isn't as good as the original series. I don't get why people like this as much as they do. And then once season 3 hit, and I was like, okay, now I get it. Also, I want to talk about one episode. There's one episode of this show that's so atrociously bad. It's become infamous for how bad it is. And this episode actually comes in season 9, not seasons 1 and 2. There is an episode where Dr. Crusher falls in love with a ghost. And when I tell you it's bad, if you're not a Star Trek fan, you can still go watch this just to laugh at how bad it is. Like, it is atrociously bad. But it's so funny. It's been meme now. It's become a part of Star Trek fandom's meme culture. It's so bad, but it's so good at the same time. And that's it. I think that's it. You can find more in-depth reviews about the show on YouTube, but I just wanted to give my quick take on the show. Well, maybe not quick, but I didn't do super in-depth as much as maybe I would like to. But this is an overview of the show and just how I feel about one of the greatest shows of all time. So, with all that being said, I'm going to give Star Trek The Next Generation a 95 out of 100. I think the next review you should be seeing from me will probably be my Christmas special. And just keep monitoring the shorts tab. So, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Potty Plant Entertainment for more. Hit the like button. And with all that being said, live long and prosper.